From WWL Louisiana, this is the 2024 Hurricane Special.
This year, we're facing an historic risk for hurricanes with the highest season forecast ever issued. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is calling for as many as 25 named storms, with up to 7 hurricanes this year reaching Category 3 strength or higher.
So now is the time to prepare and stay prepared. Remember, it only takes one storm to devastate a community.
Many of the storms that we're also seeing are getting stronger, faster than ever before. This phenomenon of rapid intensification means you need to get a plan in place now, because you may have much less time between the time a tropical storm forms and when it becomes a major hurricane.
On those Category 5s, the average lead time was 50 hours. Preparedness, got to be ready for these storms.
Tonight, the WWL Louisiana 2024 Hurricane Special, we have a closer look at the forecast for what could be the most active season ever recorded. We'll show you why all the ingredients will be in place for more storms to form this year, and why the ones that do will likely have every opportunity to strengthen as they cross the Gulf of Mexico. We'll also take a look at the latest ways to protect your family and your home when hurricanes threaten, plus updates on communities rebuilding from Hurricane Ida. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin. A very well advertised, potentially very active season is on the horizon. So let's take a look at the numbers. Now, what we're looking at is from NOAA. These are the most recent forecasted numbers for our season. 17 to 25 potentially named storms. Now, NOAA, unlike a lot of other organizations, such as Colorado State, will give a range. So it could go from just above average, being 14 named storms, to well above at 25. Of course, the record is 30 named storms, and it's very possible we could even see that. Now, as far as the number of those that become hurricanes, according to NOAA, 8 to 13 of those, again, just above or well above average, and also well above the potential for major hurricanes. That would be categories 2, 3, and 4, 3, 4, and 5. Now, looking at Colorado State, also not a surprise. They issued their forecast in April. Now, Colorado State will also issue some adjustments to their forecast as we continue throughout hurricane season. So these are the early numbers of 23, 11, and 5. Again, this would put us well above average and also fairly high above where we were in 2023. And what's interesting about 2023 is that we had an El Nino, which should have kind of died down or diminished the number of total storms that we saw, and it didn't. So what we're expecting for this season is, first off, we already have it in place, record high sea surface temperatures. What we're also expecting is the development of a La Nina. Now, this is the opposite of an El Nino. An El Nino season creates strong wind shear, helping to rip apart a lot of those developing tropical systems. In a La Nina, you have very low wind shear across the tropics, so that not necessarily enhances the development, but at least allows them to continue to strengthen. What we're also expecting are more of those tropical waves or potential tropical waves coming off of Africa, which are kind of the seeds for those long duration, possibly strong storms. Two things, though, that are going to be major variables in this seasonal forecast: Saharan dust. Early in the season, that kind of puts a hamper on anything that tries to develop out over the tropical basin. If we have an abundance of that Saharan dust, we're not going to see much of anything, especially early on in the season. Also, we don't know what the overall steering currents will be. One thing that we saw last year was that a lot of the storms stayed out over the open Atlantic. If we get 30 named storms and the vast majority stay out over the open Atlantic, while it may have been an active season, maybe we don't see much in the way of landfall. And that's something to note. Those forecasted numbers do not talk or discuss about the potential landfalls. The National Hurricane Center is constantly looking for ways to improve the forecast. This year, you'll see something new on the graphic that shows the so-called cone of uncertainty. Alexa Trischler shows us what led them to make the change.
What we really want is more action.
Some changes are coming to the way the National Hurricane Center will display their products this hurricane season. John Cangelosi is a senior hurricane specialist at the National Hurricane Center. He says starting this August, they'll be launching a new experimental cone graphic that will display wind impacts for inland areas across the continental United States.
We wanted to highlight the watches and warnings, which are really the actionable decision-making things that people need to pay attention to. We wanted to put those front and center on the graphic.
This is the cone graphic we're used to seeing every season. It only shows tropical storm and hurricane watches and warnings right along the immediate coastline.
When people think about hurricanes, that's sort of one of the graphics or one of the main graphics that comes to mind. So, we realize that it's very important and we didn't want to change it drastically.
But now this new cone graphic will look a little different. It'll include the cone plus watches and warnings for all inland areas that are affected by a storm. The reason the National Hurricane Center is making this change is so people living away from the coast can better understand their risk of strong winds when a storm is on the way. The regular cone we see every year is not going away, and it will still look the same, aside from any usual small adjustments that are made every year to create better forecasts.
Everything that you liked about the old cone, still the overall uncertainty, still the path of where it's going, still the initial wind field will be included. This is just highlighting and adding a layer of inland watches and warnings.
The regular cone graphic we see every season will still be available at the same times when a storm is on the move, and this new one will not replace it this season. Instead, the new experimental graphic will stand on its own and should be launched around August 15th, 2024. Once it's released in its experimental phase in mid-August, there will be an opportunity for feedback to improve it before its final release in the future.
We're also seeing advances in technology that you can add to your hurricane kit at home. For a while, the only option in a power outage was a noisy and potentially dangerous gas generator. Now, battery backups are getting more and more affordable. Coming up, we'll have a closer look. Check out this dramatic video released by the hurricane hunters. The U.S. Air Force has several planes dedicated to tracking hurricanes, but this flight along the Gulf Coast was part of a public relations tour earlier in the month. This shows one of the aircraft flying over Destin, Florida and Crab Island. The hurricane hunters use special planes to fly into hurricanes and collect information on things like wind speed. After a storm, we are often left with power outages, sometimes for weeks at a time. And if you don't have a generator but still want to use some electricity, batteries are an increasingly affordable option. Meteorologist Alexandra Cranford takes a look.
Hurricane Ida in 2021 knocked out power for days or even weeks. But in Bywater, Devin DeWolf had plenty of power. His 2 batteries and a rooftop of solar panels powered his house through 10 days that Entergy was out. He even shared with his neighbors.
To hook up Mr. Roy's oxygen machine, to hook up my other neighbor's refrigerator. I had a phone charging station outside. I had an ice machine that was working.
And the price of lithium-ion batteries has dropped dramatically as manufacturing gets more efficient. A battery that cost $1,000 10 years ago now costs $175, and they've gotten smaller. You can find whole house batteries now for about $4,000 or $5,000. They weigh as little as 40 pounds. Many batteries can be bought with solar panels added on, so you're all set up. If you don't need a whole house system, but you still want to do some normal household things while the power is out, like making some coffee, watching TV, or charging your phone or laptop, you could probably get away with a much smaller battery. This version weighs 7 pounds. It costs $250 on Amazon, plus about $100 for a solar panel. And it's as easy to use as plugging into its outlet. For some people, batteries are better than fuel-based generators. They're silent, less polluting, and don't use gasoline. They also don't have the danger of generators. Remember, after Ida, 6 people died of carbon monoxide poisoning from generator misuse. Before you buy a battery, one thing to consider is that the price is expected to keep dropping. So you'll have to weigh whether you want it now or in a couple of years when it might be even cheaper. Some forecasts call for battery prices to drop another third by the year 2030. For WWL Louisiana, I'm meteorologist Alexandra Cranford.
Our area has gotten lucky these past 2 years, but with a forecast for an even more active season this year, you're going to make sure you are ready for anything. Early this month, Jefferson Parish officials gave their first update on how they're getting prepared. Rachel Hanley has more.
Hurricane season might start on June 1st, but the leaders of our area's biggest parish have been thinking about it for a long time.
Jefferson Parish is storm ready.
Friday morning, the parish's emergency response officials talked about how their departments have been preparing.
We've completed our annual EOC activation training.
We have spent the last 6 months upgrading systems and inspecting and maintaining our levees.
We have boats that we use for water rescue.
There are a few factors that make prep this year extra important and complicated. For one, more storms rapidly intensify now. That's shortened the timeline for evacuation. JP leaders saw it firsthand during Hurricane Ida.
It went from a Category 2 to a Category 4 right before our eyes and left us very little time.
Homeowners are also dealing with impossible insurance costs. Parish President Cynthia Lee Shang acknowledged that getting a permit for roof repairs after a storm is a pain, but it can help you later on if you need to get a new policy.
It becomes a legal government document of I got a new roof in 2024.
Because of that, the parish has a new online system in place to get a permit more quickly.
It's a very, very quick process. It does not require any of our people to go out.
There was also emphasis on what people can do, both now,
making sure your car right now is in working order, having those conversations with your family about where you would go,
and after a storm. The after is especially important. They urged everyone who plans to use a generator to get it checked now. Hurricane Ida killed 6 people in Jefferson Parish, and 4 of them died of carbon monoxide poisoning.
It is odorless. It is. You cannot see it, and it is the silent killer.
It's a lot to think about for families and for parish leaders. But with nothing in the forecast, right now is the time to make these plans, which hopefully won't ever be needed. Rachel Handley, WWL Louisiana.
All right, get out your pen and paper and get ready to write down some important contacts. If you live in JP, the parish website is where you can go to sign up for their medical needs registry. This is for people who may need some help if there is an evacuation. You can also call to ask questions, and the number is listed on your screen. For people in New Orleans, you can send a text message for more information. Text EVAC NOLA to 77295 if you think you might need to use the city-assisted evacuation option. Now, up at St. Tammany Parish, they're planning a special needs shelter. The number is 985-898-3074. Many other local parishes have similar programs, and there is a statewide hotline. You can text LA Shelter to 898-211 to find out more. And you can read more tips and make a hurricane checklist at the website for the State Office of Homeland Security. The address is getagameplan.org. We'll be right back. Stay with us for more. It's not going to be done in time for this hurricane season, but crews are building a new levee system to protect tens of thousands of our neighbors who live west of the Bonnie Carey Spillway. Winston Reed shows us the progress on the West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project.
Storm relief is on the way for those who live and work in the river parishes. It was just 3 years ago when Ida brought strong winds, heavy rain, and a large storm surge from Lake Pontchartrain, causing widespread flooding in LaPlace. Now a new levee system is under construction that will help reduce the risk of flooding for 60,000 residents in St. John, St. James, and St. Charles parishes. Despite NOAA predicting one of the busiest hurricane seasons on record this year, these communities are not expected to reap the benefits until next hurricane season. About 70% of the 18.5-mile levee system is currently under construction. The levee will eventually extend from the Bonnie Carey Spillway to Garyville.
Yeah, I think next year, once these levee contracts get along, there'll be some level of risk reduction in certain areas where we're building levees until we get to the end. So incrementally at that point, as we build and as we add more work and do more work and add more contracts, we'll start realizing more gain as we go incrementally.
According to the Army Corps of Engineers, the total cost of the project is slated for $760 million. It's expected to be completed by 2027. I'm Winston Reed, WWL, Louisiana.
When hurricane season rolls around, you start noticing different things around the yard, leading to questions like, is that tree going to fall if it gets stormy? Peyton Malone talks to the experts about some potential warning signs to watch out for.
The 2023 hurricane season, it was busy. We had 20 named storms, but here on the northern Gulf Coast, we didn't have any problems. Last year, we had a big heat ridge or blocking high pressure. It protected us. This is not a bad thing for us when this happens in the middle of the season because it can steer storms away from our areas, and that's exactly what happened last year. Now, while this helped us in 2023, this could end up hurting us in 2024. What do I mean by that? Well, high pressure created a very hot and dry summer. We saw one of our driest and hottest summers on record, and that means a lot of our vegetation and our trees were stressed last year. Some are still going through that stress, and that means they are more vulnerable as we head into the 2024 hurricane season.
Thankfully, we have had plenty of rain this year, and the trees are loving it, but looks can be deceiving. I spoke to certified arborist Bernie Wisnowski. He said it appears trees are in a longer growing season this year, attributing it to last year's summer drought. This allows trees to have more leaves and in turn catch more wind. More leaves and a strong wind, though, that can lead to limb failure, especially if the tree is already having problems. Unfortunately, it's sometimes hard to tell if a tree is having these problems. There are clear signs like dead branches, fungus, loss of leaves, or even cracks in the trunk. But even for trees that appear healthy, they can have internal problems that are hard to spot. This is when it's important to bring in an expert to evaluate your trees. If you do have trees with dead limbs, it's a good idea to remove those already dead branches and inspect the tree for further problems. During high wind events, these dead branches can easily become projectiles, leading to even more damage to your property. After last year's record-breaking summer of heat and drought, you need to be extra vigilant this hurricane season as you make your preparations. And the time to do those preparations are now, way before a storm ever threatens the area. It's important to inspect every single tree on your property, whether it looks healthy or not. And if you do have concerns about a tree or whether it needs to come down, make sure to reach out to a licensed arborist to get an expert opinion.
Hurricane Ida in 2021 was the last major hurricane to hit our area. For many, the recovery will still take many more years. That's the case in Terrebonne Parish. We have an update from officials on the timeline to rebuild some elementary schools and make them stronger so they can withstand future storms. Hurricane Ida left many people across Louisiana picking up the pieces years after its devastating landfall 3 years ago. With so many still left fighting to get their lives back to normal, there is a glimmer of hope for a community down the bayou whose schools were destroyed back in 2021. Meteorologist Alexa Trishler spoke to the superintendent of Terrebonne Parish Schools about their road to recovery.
They're looking forward to getting into their new building.
For 3 years, nearly 800 kids and their teachers in Terrebonne Parish have been displaced from their schools after being destroyed by Hurricane Ida in 2021. Since then, both the Grand Caillou and Upper Little Caillou elementary schools have been relocated to former vacant schools in Houma.
They're in really good spaces and schools right now. A little bit out of their community, but they're looking forward to getting into their new buildings.
Bubba Ogeron is the superintendent of Terrebonne Parish Schools and says this has put a strain on their community.
It's legitimately inconvenient when they have to go and check out their student, for an illness or for a doctor's appointment or whatever it may be, right? It's further they have to drive.
Rather than letting these ravaged schools be forgotten, the school board and the community decided to rebuild both schools, a long process with an exciting new development. Right now, Ogeron says they're working with architects on the design phase of the new schools. Both schools have been demolished so the new ones can go in the same spot. They plan to start construction by the summer of 2025. This process has been taking so long because the district is working with FEMA, who first had to approve the plan and cost estimates before next steps. FEMA is taking care of 90% of the funding, and the school district will cover the rest. Each school is going to cost about $20 million, and they'll be built much stronger and more resilient to withstand future disasters.
Very well constructed schools that can sustain, future kind of wind events from storms, right? And that's all due to code and upgrades, to make them hurricane resistant and high impact resistant buildings. You know, that's from the structures to the high impact windows, everything.
They plan to have both schools back in session by the 2026-2027 school year.
Well, that brings our 2024 hurricane special to a close. Stay right here with WWL Louisiana as we monitor all the disturbance in the tropics and continue tracking the progress in our recovery. You can always find the latest here on Channel 4 as well as on our website and social media pages. And make sure to download our smartphone app so you have the very latest forecast handy. You can also use the app to share photos and videos of severe weather with us. Just make sure it's safe before you do so. And as you prepare for what is expected to be a very active storm season, check on your relatives and your neighbors. From all of us here at WWL Louisiana, stay safe and have a great night.